your listing, you got it going. If you're working with a buyer, you've been out there showing properties, it's paid off, they're ready to write an offer. And like I normally say to people, everyone says, "Oh my God, when I'm showing property, this is incredible." Okay, nothing happens till somebody writes something. And it's the same thing even when you get your listing. Because as you all know, as we talked about it last week, you spend a lot of money to get your listing up and going. So now that you've got it up and going and you've had showings, or if you're out there with a buyer and you're showing your buyer, um, you're going from the process of going to an agreement, the work together or the listing agreement, to go into a purchase contract. Okay. Now we're going to focus today a little bit more on buyers than sellers, but I'll jump back and forth on it. Or if you have questions on how the scenarios work, just let me know and I'll stop and we'll go from there. Okay. But your seller is going to be saying, I'll just start this right up there. Your seller is going to always be saying to you, "I don't want anything less than what we listed at. You tell me I was going to get my price and maybe even more." Okay. Try and curb your enthusiasm when you do that with your seller. Don't whatever you do, don't overpromise. Okay, because you're going to wind up under delivering. I'd rather you have it the other way around, where you under promise and then over deliver. Okay. But for those of you working with a buyer, everyone says, "Oh my God, I've been out there with them and this is amazing." But until they say, "Let's get ready to write," okay, you've got to make sure that you're going to make it happen. Because the offer process is simple. You write up the offer and then you present it. And three things are going to happen. Either it's going to be accepted, it's going to get countered, or it's going to get rejected. And in this market, there are a lot of offers that just get rejected. Okay, yesterday I had a client that wanted to write an offer on a house that was 2 days on the market. It was $1.5 million, and they wanted to offer $1,379,000. So I told them it wasn't going to get accepted. We weren't even going to get countered. They said, "Well, let's just see what happens." Okay. You newer agents are in a tougher world than when I started 22 years ago, and I'm going to tell you why. Television and social media. Okay. Don't watch those TV shows. Okay. Please don't. They're totally bullshit. Okay. Those agents who are on it are extremely successful. Extremely, all of them. But I've never seen any of them go on a listing appointment with a listing presentation. I've never seen them get a listing without a listing contract. Okay, and those that work around with buyers, I've never seen them show them comps. So try not to do that. Try not to read too many real estate books. Yes, I've been saying I want you to be a student of the industry, but practice it from either your training director, your team leader, your operating partner when Harma does his stuff, or Veronica does her stuff, or if you're listening to me here on Ignite, get the real McCoy. Don't go to the fabrication of TV or a book. Okay. Normally, good teachers are those who weren't successful in sales, me being the exception, of course. But no, normally you're going to always have people that are going to try and tell you a specific thing. Remember, every single situation and scenario is different. Every single one of them. Okay. We presented and we got laughed at. And I actually asked the listing agent to send me an email blasting me. I know the agent very, very well. And he sent me the email and I forwarded it to the buyer, and the buyer was insulted. I said, "Well, that's funny. Now you have the seller insulted on your lowball offer, and now you're insulted at the response." I got a call this morning at 8 o'clock from the husband of the buyer apologizing. He apologized to me. He said, "We really wanted that house badly." And I've taken him out probably 3 or 4 times now, shown him maybe 16 homes. I think it's 16. And this was the first one they really jumped on. But the wife is one of those. She's glued to $1 Million listing. She's glued to Miami listing. She's glued to reading books and researching on the internet. But you got to make sure that you understand that if a seller lists their home okay, and it's only on the market 2 days, they're not coming down. So that's how something get rejected. If you get it accepted, great. If you get countered, normally the seller will counter you on various different terms. The first one always being on price. The second one is normally on escrow, length of term. And the third one is usually on contingencies. And what we're seeing right now, just so you all know, is with multiple offers, many, many, many of them are requesting or countering in to remove the appraisal contingency. Okay, it's very common right now. That's where you run into the problem if you're working with an FHA buyer or a 10% down buyer. Okay, buyers who are coming in with 35, 40, 50% or even more down are more apt to have the lender say, don't worry about the appraisal. Does anyone know why or how that works with the appraisal? And Marina, you can't answer this question, so you're out. You can't answer this one. Anyone have an idea?
I kind of have an idea.
Give it a shot, Taylor.
So the lender wants to make sure that they're giving like an appropriate amount of money for the home purchase. So if it appraises for a lot less than you offer, you have to come in with extra cash to make up the difference.
Sometimes, not always, but sometimes. But that was good. Anyone else want it? That was really good. Anyone else want to take a stab? Sorry, you want to try and take a stab at that? I know you're brand new, but you want to try and take a stab?
I just wanna I think about maybe because they wanna take off their loan and everything, the appraisal.
Okay, well, the loan contingency and appraisal contingency are actually separate contingencies. Okay, but we're getting closer. Lionel, I don't see you this morning, but I see your name, but I don't see you. Do you want to take a stab at that?
Take a stab at it. I think what
Gotta
like
unmute. There you go.
yeah, I think if there's like an agreed upon price, like say they agree with a price and then someone comes and it appraises lower and then the buyers are gonna be like, wait, I said I was gonna pay, say for example, 1.5 and they're saying it's only worth 1.25, and then it's gonna start to create problems and they're gonna start to wonder if it really is a good price. They're gonna double think and it may throw the whole thing out.
Okay, so here's how the appraisal works. Okay, the lender sends out an appraiser, not us, not the listing agent, not the buyer's agent, the lender. Okay, well, appraiser comes out and appraises the home. The appraiser meets the listing agent out there. The listing agent, not you, even though the appraisal is being done on behalf of your buyer's loan, you're not there. The listing agent comes with comps because the listing agent's going to one that's going to be there fighting for how they set the listing price or the agreed upon price. Okay, so the bank is looking to make sure that they're protected. When the market crashed, it was because of all the stated loans. People were borrowing 115, 120% loan to value. A loan to value means the value of the property compared to the loan. So the more exposure the bank had, the more detrimental it was in case that the buyer couldn't make their monthly payments. So the best example I can use is, let's say it's $1 million purchase and the buyer is putting down 50%. That means that the bank is recognizing that the home is worth at least $500,000, correct? So the bank is more apt to lend on that, knowing that they don't have exposure. Now, if it's $1 million listing and a purchase price, and the buyer is only putting down 5%, only 5%, that means the loan to value
It's gonna be risky.
is $950,000 because 10% would be 900,000. So that's where they get into the problem. Okay, but it's up to the lender to decide if they're comfortable in doing the loan with the appraisal contingency waived. Now, if the appraisal comes in under value, okay, and this is where you were so close, Taylor, if the appraisal comes in under value, we have one of three options. The lender can require, let me back up. The two agents can discuss lowering the price to where the appraisal came in, seller's not going to go for that. They can potentially meet in the middle, seller's not going to go for that. Okay? The buyer can walk. Okay? The buyer can just walk, or the fourth option is the lender can require the buyer to put more money in to make up the difference. Now, when buyers are really stretched and they haven't put a lot of money down, the odds of them being able to put more money in, skin into the game, are not well. Okay, so that's where if you're getting into a multiple counter situation, you're going to have to make sure that it's going to even out to be able to work. Has everyone got that, or anyone have a question about that? Because it's very, very common right now. Very, very common that happens. So any questions on the appraisal issue? The moment you're ready to write an offer, okay, you're going to make 2 phone calls. To who?
Lenders.
The lender and the listing agent. Give the listing agent a heads up. But you do put the lender on alert. Okay, now this is why I told you when you first start working with a buyer, make sure you get in touch with that lender. Create some kind of a relationship or rapport so that you two are on the same page. Because this is where I wear my black hat now. Okay, lenders in general. I hope there's no one married to a lender on this call. But lenders in general are full of crap. Why are you laughing, Victoria? Lenders in general are full of crap. They will tell you when they first get to work with a buyer, they're the easiest, it's a no-brainer. I can close it so quickly. It's a done deal before you even get started. The moment that you tell them that you're going to be writing an offer, well, you know, they haven't really furnished me with all their paperwork, so it's not going to be that easy. So, you know, make sure that how long is the escrow going to be? What are your contingency periods going to be? They're going to try and dictate everything, but you're going to see them with their turkey necks going wobbling each which way, because what happened was a no-brainer, a can of corn, the easiest loan I'm going to do all year, turns out to, it's not going to be that easy. So make sure you keep the lender in the loop on everything you're doing. Because when you're going to prepare to write the offer, the buyer is the one that's going to be telling you how they want you to write the offer, how much they want to put down, how long of an escrow, okay, how much they're putting down, what contingencies they want. If there's something else they want in the deal, maybe it's furniture, or maybe it's appliances that the MLS said was excluded, okay? You have to go by what your client says, but it's up to you to guide them and make sure. Now, I'm in a different position than you newer agents are, where I'll tell a client, I don't need practice writing an offer. So if they're not real, don't write. But in your instance, if a client says they're ready to write, write. It's good practice for you. But just remember this, if your client isn't real, you're going to be wasting the listing agent's time. And you don't want to do that, because at some point, at somewhere, this industry is small enough, you're going to cross paths with that agent and they're going to say, oh, I remember you wrote that offer, you were playing games with me. So you're only as good as your reputation and your word, okay? And that's why when you're going to get prepared to write, talk to the listing agent and say, I'm going to be preparing an offer. Is there anything I should know or anything you'd like to recommend to make our offer look stronger? Because then you can go back to your buyer and say, hey, look, I talked to the listing agent and this is what they told me it's going to take. Okay, and many, many good agents will be transparent with you and tell you what it's going to take to get a deal done. The older generation of agents, the older generation would say, well, I don't know, I'm just the agent, you know, I'm not the principal, I can't tell you that, okay? Today's market is be a deal maker, don't be a deal breaker. So you don't want to waste somebody's time. So even if, you know, if property's listed for $1 million and your client wants to start at 850, okay, you might be the one to say, look, I went to the listing agent. She said, don't even bother. Well, are you telling me you're not going to write? They're telling me they're not going to even entertain it. And then you have to make a decision because it's your client, okay? But you don't want to lose that client. And they might say, well, you know what? I wanted to write and you told me no, I'll find an agent that will. You watch how quickly that loyalty or friendship goes out the window when you test their intelligence or test their credibility or integrity, okay? But remember, you're in this business for the long haul, hopefully. You're making this a career. So it's up to you. Build a rapport with the agent on the other side, okay? Because that agent is going to make or break your deal, and we're going to get to that in a couple of minutes here. So as you're preparing to write the offer, you're going to need 3 things when you present that offer and get ready to prepare it. What are they? 3 things. Come on.
Approval letter.
Approval letter. FICO scores. FICO scores. We don't pull people's credit, by the way, because God forbid if they get identity theft, they're going to look and say, well, you had my information. Let the lender put the FICO scores in the pre-approval letter, okay? Don't run somebody's credit. And what's the third thing that we need when we're getting ready to present our offer or even prepare it?
Proof of funds.
Proof of funds. Thank you, Marina. So you've got the pre-approval letter, FICO scores, and proof of funds. The pre-approval letter cannot be older than 45 days, whatever it's dated. You need a fresh letter. FICO scores, the lender will get. And the bank statement or a verification of funds can't be older than 60 days. Okay? You've got to have them both current. So as you start,
6 days?
I'm sorry?
It's not later than 6 days or 60 days?
60.
Okay, thank you.
So you're going to sit with your client and they're going to tell you how they want you to write it up, and you'll write it up. Now make sure you fill in all of the boxes, and that's for 2 reasons. And the first and foremost is you want to show the other agent, the seller, that you're a professional, that you're buttoned up, and that you know what you're doing. Nothing is worse when I get offers on my listings and they're just butchered. There are things missing, it's incomplete, even down to the last page of the contract where you have the information for the 2 agents. Fill out the other side's form as well. Their address, their email, their license numbers. People love that, okay? I get more compliments when I do that, when I write an offer. They say, wow, you're really thorough and complete. Because they're going to look and go, if this guy knows the paperwork, he knows what he's doing. Because this I will tell you, when it gets into a competitive situation, meaning multiple offers, sometimes the highest price isn't the winner. I tend to choose the other agent. Yep, that's right. Not the buyer, not the offer. I choose the other agent. Anyone have an idea why? Because for better or worse, I'm married to that other agent for the next 30, 45 or 70 days. However long it takes to close, I'm working with that other real estate agent. The last thing I want is to have a nightmare agent ruining the thing. Now remember, whenever there's a deal, there's always 2 principals, a buyer and a seller. They're the main attraction. The escrow officer is the independent referee, and you have the agents who are the sideshows. My experience and history over my real estate career is that the agents are the ones that usually screw up or ruin a deal because they just can't get out of their own way, or their ego is such that they want to show you that they're going to thump their chest. They're the smartest person in the room. Okay. Work with somebody who you know. That's why I'm saying build a relationship with the other agent, whether it's when you first start showing, you know, make small talk while your client's looking around. Give the other agent a feel, God, I hope this person's, you know, writes. They'd be good to work with. They seem like they're a real pro. There have been numerous times, without patting myself on the back, where I've been in multiple offers and I've gotten the deal without being the highest price. Because the other agent that you've done the deal with or you communicated with knows that you're there to do one thing and one thing only. And that's what?
Close.
Closed. Thank you. Get it closed. We don't sell homes. We close homes. We don't get paid unless you close. You can sell, you know, God knows, you know, you can sell more ice than an Eskimo, for God's sakes, okay? But the bottom line is this, you've got to get it closed. So ensure that, A, the property is available. Find out how many offers are on it. Every listing agent will tell you, I've got offers. Well, how many? You know, where are they at? You know, well, I've got 2 below, 2 at full price, and 5 over. That way, at least you go back to your client with real good intel. And they're like, well, how do you know? Because I've worked up a little bit of a relationship with the listing agent, and this is what they've told me. Find out what's important, especially from your client's side. You know, we see a lot of times in this market as well where we get, hey, you know, my client hasn't found anything. Would your client be willing to rent back? You all understand what rent back is, right? Where you close and then the seller pays the buyer's PITI while they find something. Okay? You want to know as much activity on the property as you can that your client's interested in. Okay? Don't get ahead of yourself. Well, you know, I'm going to do this. Write the offer. Ensure that your buyer knows everything. Okay? Why? Because if or when they get the deal, that RPA, residential purchase agreement, becomes a legal binding document. Okay? Jessica, I'll answer that in a second, okay? Because we've been warned about that. Give me 1 minute and I'll respond because I'm getting to that as well. Make sure that your contract is complete. Okay, if you start looking and you know other agent says shorten your contingencies, you're going to have to do that. Now, I normally do that anyway. Even in any kind of market, I take my due diligence down when I'm working with a buyer from 17 days to 10 days. Because I want to know if I have the deal going or not. Okay? Home inspections are one of the biggest ones that blow deals out. Okay? So you're going to have your 3 items, your pre-approval letter, FICO scores, verification of funds, and you've got your complete offer. Now, there's a big question these days about should I present a personal note guide? Our legal counsel has recommended we do not, going forward, do that. Okay, for the simple reason that they seem to feel that it's both an invasion of privacy and it also can work against you if you send a personal letter with a photo that maybe the people don't like the way you look and therefore you're not going to get the offer accepted. I know I've seen a couple of you smiling right now, but there are some weird people out there. And they, you know, where you have other people that if the home has been in the family for many, many years, they're going to hand pick the family because of a photo or a letter that they want to see. I personally like to read the personal notes. Okay. I think it's a good idea. I don't know if it's a good idea including a photo. Okay, so that's going to be a judgment call on your part. Did that answer you, Jessica? Did that help a little bit?
Yes, perfect. Thank you. It's good information.
Just be careful. You never know who's going to be discriminatory or racially motivated. It's a different world we live in today. You know, whereas other people are just, if I get my price, I don't care who lives here.
Right.
You have other people that are just, they're strange. Okay. So
Makes sense.
make sure that you walk your client through the offer. Because if you submit an offer and you have not explained to your people what they are signing, who's responsible? Who's the buyer going to go after immediately? Who has the E&O insurance? And if you remember from day one, I've told you the client is never wrong, whether it's the buyer or the seller. Okay? And I know it sounds weird, and to use the expression, it's fucked up, but it is. It is what it is. Okay. So every place that has something that's significant, whether it's a contingency period or their loan amount or how much they're putting down, please make sure that you discuss with them what they're doing. Because when you get to the point and if that contract is executed by the other side, it becomes a legal document. And your training director's name isn't on it. Potentially down the road, your transaction coordinator's not on it. Your name is, because as the agent, you're signing it. Okay, and that's one of the reasons why we as a company don't allow new agents to use a transaction coordinator for their first 3 transactions. Okay, you have to learn the paperwork. You have to learn the process, because the bottom line is this. If you say, well, I wasn't keeping an eye on the paperwork, Monica, our transaction coordinator, she doesn't go to court for you. You go. I'm not trying to scare any of you, but we in California live in the most litigious state in the country. People are so happy in this state. Okay? Don't be a number. Don't be a statistic. Make sure you know your business. Okay? When you're ready to send your offer to the other side, humanize it. Just don't send an email saying, here's my offer. Talk about it a little bit. As I told you, you had a chance to meet my clients at the showing. They love it. They could see themselves raising their family here, just like it appears your clients did. This is where you have to pick up some insight. You see photos from a long term, from babies to adults, that's great. If you have, they want to be able to have the love and joy that this house had. Make sure that you notice, okay, when you're walking around, that both parents' photos are up. That like maybe the dad's photo isn't in the kids' room. Because if it's a divorce, the last thing you want to do is put in your email, they want to enjoy the home as much as you did. Okay. You don't want to be able to do that. So you want to be able to move along, okay, to enjoy and the synergy that both sides will have, and talk about yourself. My partner Peter and I, have been doing this for a long time, and we're not in it to waste time. We're in it to close. So you talked about your client. Now talk about you a little bit. That you're not in it. You're in it to win it. You're not in it to waste time. You're not in it to kill a tree by having all this paper. You're in it to be able to do that. But your email shouldn't just be robotic or mechanical. Victoria, do you have a question? I saw something regarding commercial leases. What's your thought?
Yeah, I have a client. I have to go show him a property.
Okay.
He wants to make it a hookah lounge, so it's for business use.
Uh-huh.
I don't know. I never done a transaction. It's gonna be my first transaction, hopefully. I don't know. What do you recommend about closing?
Well, the first thing you have to make sure is if it's zoned for a lounge.
Yeah, I made sure it is.
Okay. So you might want to talk about your client. I mean, is this the first time he's doing this, or has he been at it? Has he done it before?
He's done it before. It's his second time.
So you want to talk about that he's experienced and he's expanding his business. He currently has such and such place in Valley Village, and it's one of the most successful ones. It's been long term, and now he's decided he wants to expand. He fell in love with this location. Mm-hmm. So absolutely, you want to be able to do that. You definitely want to be able to do that when you're talking about commercial space as well. Obviously, it's not as emotional as raising your family there, but to pivot, you're expanding your business. Very similar, very, very similar. Okay? Questions so far? Nobody? Okay. So things that you want to make sure that you include in the offer and make sure that you're accurate are pricing terms. Purchase price is what what your client wants you to write, and the terms being the contingencies, periods, and things like that. Make sure that you have written down that you want the seller's disclosures as soon as possible. Make sure that you write in a 3% earnest money deposit. So if it's $1 million home, the deposit's $30,000. Anything less will raise a red flag. Why?
We don't know. We don't get your commission.
Nope. Nothing to do with our commission. Nope.
Okay.
Put your money where your mouth is.
Talk about that, Taylor. You spot on. Talk about it.
Well, don't you not get your earnest money deposit back usually? So it's just saying like, here, I'm serious about the deal. Hold on to this until like you review the other offers. And
Well, your money doesn't go anywhere, but you're offering it up in the offer, the
Mhm.
3%. But it shows that your buyer's in it to win it. If they're writing $1 million offer and they're only going to put down $5,000, how serious are they?
Yeah.
Well, they don't want to tie up a lot of their money in escrow. Well, there's a section in the contract called liquidated damages. Does anyone know what that is?
Yeah, so when the offer doesn't go through, that money goes back to buyer or seller.
What do you mean?
Depending.
What do you mean?
Violate the contract, then you would forfeit that amount of money.
Okay, interesting. Anyone else want to take a stab? We're getting close. Liquidated damages. See if one more person wants to take a stab at it. Angela, you want to take if you unmute, Angela, you want to maybe take a stab at that? Liquidated damages? No? Okay, so liquidated damages is the buyer's limited scope of liability and exposure. Meaning, if you have 3% of the purchase price in escrow and you still have contingencies open, on the buyer side, the buyer can cancel without any penalty of losing their deposit. Should the buyer, no problem, Angela. Should the buyer, after contingencies have been removed, decide they just don't want to go forward, their exposure, their deposit is exposed to potentially having the seller taken. That's why it's called liquidated damages. So therefore, if a buyer at $1 million only puts in $5,000, what's the skin in the game for the buyer? And how does the seller feel about that? The seller wants to get into a deal with somebody who's equally committed to getting it closed. That explain that, everyone? Just nod for me to make sure that I hit that one right. Okay, so you're going to go through it. You have all of your different terms. Even when you send your email to the listing agent, maybe highlight some of the strong points. Where $35,000 over, we don't have a appraisal contingency. All of our contingencies will be removed 10 days from acceptance. Okay, you highlight different things to get them to understand it. Okay, to show them how great you want to do it. And during this, you're going to still keep the lender informed. Why? Because if you get into a multiple offer situation and you have to go higher, you must make sure the lender is comfortable with you. Okay, because if the lender's not comfortable, you're not going to get the deal. You're not going to get the deal if the lender can't do the deal. Okay, so you want to make sure you do that. All right.
Peter, have you ever put more than 3% in very competitive market?
No, because I mean, what I have done in a competitive situation is I've said it at, 10 days into the deal when all contingencies are removed, we'll release our deposit, non-refundable. I've done that. Yeah, I've done that on different occasions, but I won't put more. There's no reason to put more in.
Thank you.
Okay. But I have on occasion said, when the buyer removes contingencies, we'll release our deposit to you non-refundable as a sign of we're totally in on this. We're all in to close with you. Does that help?
Yes.
Okay, good. Anyone else on that? Anyone else have a question as we're going through on that?
I have a
Okay.
question.
Go ahead.
When you're actually writing the offer, are you literally just typing all this stuff in an email, or is there like a form that you are filling out?
What do you mean when you write the offer?
Yes.
Okay, so you go into your car forms
Mm.
and you'll pull up the residential purchase agreement, and that's how you get started. And then you start filling in the blanks. Have you looked at your car forms yet, Taylor?
Look at some forms, zip forms, car forms.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's where you'll get the RPA from. And then you highlight in your email what your strong suits are. If you've got a couple of weak points, you don't have to highlight them. Trust me, the other side will find them. They will. Okay. So you're then going to get back offer objections, better known as counter offers. And what could some of the counters come back from the listing side? What could some of them be? One?
I would say the appraisal removal.
Okay. Okay. Most counters are usually price where they start.
Mm.
So you do run the course on that. Others are contingency periods to shorten up. Others are that the seller will say, as is, no repairs, no nothing. How are we going to handle that? I mean, because you still want to do an inspection, but the seller's saying they're not going to do anything.
You pay for the inspection out of your pocket?
Absolutely not.
No? Okay.
Absolutely not. You don't work for free. No way.
No, I'm saying out of the buyer's pocket, not yours.
Well, the buyer pays for the inspection. Seller doesn't pay for the home inspection. Real estate agent doesn't pay for the home inspection. The buyer does.
Okay.
Okay, but it's up to the buyer to decide that. Now, I have found in many instances when the seller says, as is, no repairs,
Mhm.
that if something is major or something comes up, the seller's normally willing to cooperate then, because remember, if they haven't disclosed that, even though the home is sold as is, they're leaving themselves exposed, the seller. And I know that might sound like I'm contradicting myself, but that does happen on occasion where the home is sold as is, and then maybe there's a foundation crack or there's mold, okay? The seller doesn't want that extended liability down the road coming back to haunt them. And by either giving a credit, which they normally do, that then indemnifies the seller against any other potential findings or exposure. Because as escrow will write it, seller gives buyer credit $5,000 in lieu of any and all repairs. And that's how they get out of it. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay, so that's also how you're going to potentially get countered back. Now, if you're on the seller side, you've got to look back and make sure that the contingency periods and anything else on the seller's sale side works for the seller, not for you as the agent. Don't jump the gun and say, oh my God, I'm getting real close to getting a commission. Okay, and we have had that problem. And because of that, we don't allow our new agents to double pop. for dual agency, a brand sides. And that happened because we had a situation where one of our new agents represented, it was her listing, and this was during open house times. She had a buyer come in an open house. Okay. She had multiple offers, but she took the offer that she wrote. And then we found out subsequently down the road, it wasn't the highest offer, and that she was also forcing the buyer to remove their contingencies before they were due, because she had gotten ensconced and infatuated with the green-eyed monster, better known as a very large commission check. Her first deal's commission check was going to be over $55,000. And that's all she was focused on. And I can tell you that she's also no longer with the company. Okay, so don't lose sight. The fact of the matter is, when you write up a contract, whether it's on the listing side or the buyer side, you have a fiduciary to protect that principal before you start worrying about your payday. Any questions on that? I mean, I got it. At this point, we really have to talk about it. You are there to protect the principal. They are counting on you. They are counting on Keller Williams to make sure that their best interests are being protected and that decisions made are in the best interests of the principal and not you or listing agent. Okay? Just so we're perfectly clear on that. I want to make sure that everyone's aware of it. On the listing side, if you're the listing agent, you're going to talk to your client and say, here's what the offers have. If you're in multiples, take out a piece of paper and write down offer number one, offer price, contingencies, different things like that. What did they remove during the offer? So that way there's no confusion on any part or at any point, so your client fully understands what you're looking for and doing. Okay, it's that important. I want you all to keep that in mind, that as you're going through, all of a sudden, showing homes becomes irrelevant if you're working on the buy side. All of a sudden, just getting the list becomes irrelevant because now you're legal. And remember, yes, you pay E&O insurance, but you have a very large deductible. Okay, and if it comes out that you knowingly committed fraud, which is known as torque, your E&O doesn't cover that. Well, that got everyone's attention. If you commit fraud, your insurance does not cover it. Now I've got a bunch of people going like this. Okay, so really be careful with what you're doing. Okay, you're not in it for one deal. Okay, and there have been many times where I'll say, this commission check's not worth my license. Okay, don't allow that to happen. When you're working on the listing side, as the listing agent, pick up the phone and call the lender. Ask the lender, so how good are these people? How solid are they? How qualified are they? How serious are they? How well do you know them? Okay, you are well within your rights as the listing agent to ask the lender all of those questions. On the other side, if you're on the listing side and you want to talk to the buyer's agent, how committed are they? If I go with you, there's going to be no games, right? You're only as good as your word. And trust me, when you close a deal, that agent won't forget. And if you make it a smooth, easy deal, that agent won't forget you, regardless which side it's on. And here's the other great side. If you have a listing and the agent who's now the listing agent on this side, and you got the deal and you did it well with them, they're going to be more apt to have a payback. Say, you know what? You got me that deal. I'm going to now reciprocate. And that's how seasoned agents are. Like buyers, like sellers, they want to work with people they like. So do agents. Not only people they like, but people that they trust and respect. Okay, I've gone into areas that I normally don't working. And when I submit an offer, I've gotten people to say to me, I heard you close the deal that you're no nonsense. Yes, that's true. Great. Can you do it on this one? Absolutely. I don't waste time. If we write, we're in it to win it. You can use that phrase all you want when you're representing a buyer. We are in it to close. We're not playing games. We're not looking to change things around. We want to get this closed. Okay? And you want to do it per the contract. I'm not going to tie up the property, because that's the last thing your seller ever wants you to do. Is pick an agent and a buyer that's going to start playing games. You know, you can, if you're the listing side, ask the buyer's agent. So where did they come up with this price? How did they get to it? You know, if it goes over, are they going to try, you ready? Are they going to try and renegotiate it back down? Are they just trying to get it so that we accept it, and then they're going to look for reasons for reduction? Because it's not going to happen. Okay. And as the listing agent, yeah, you've got to stand your ground a little bit more sometimes and go, we're not renegotiating. So if we go into it, I expect you to honor what you've written, because we're honoring what we've written and accepted. We want to follow on the guidelines of that. Okay. When you have to go back, now we're flipping back to the buyer side. So the listing agent has sent back a counteroffer. How do you present that to your buyer? Well, the first thing you do is you want to read the counter. Whatever you do, please don't skim things over. Take your time reading. Read it thoroughly. Read it 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, so that way you see everything. Too often I see newer agents. Hold on for 1 second. Hold on for 1 second. Hey, bud, I'm teaching Ignite. I'll call you back. Okay. Okay. Too often I see newer agents, and they just skim through things. And then when I asked them, so did you read it? Well, yeah, I kind of did, but I got distracted. You know what? Stop what you're doing and read it. It's that important. Because if there's a lot to happen on countering, the first thing you're going to do is tell your buyer, take a deep breath. And you're going to turn the negative into a positive, saying, at least we got a counter. You know, 14 of the other offers didn't. So we have something to work with. Okay, you got some, remember, nothing happens till somebody writes something. So the fact that you're getting a counter back means that they took your offer seriously. And then you're going to go step by step. Okay, and a lot of times on multiples these days, what we see is that first line is best and final offer. Don't lead in with that. Lead in with the other points, whether it's contingency periods or removal of a certain contingency or two, or some other, you know, claim that the seller wants to make. Okay, on that, you can look at it. I'll answer that 1 second, Victoria. So that you can look at them and then go to your client and say, finally, how high do we want to go? Now, before I present the counter, what's the first thing you're going to do? You're going to go back to the listing agent and go, you know what, 2 through 6 are easy. What do you need to get it done on price? A good listing agent's going to tell you, because they don't want to waste any time. They want to get the best. Well, you know, it's not my house. I really can't say. Well, good agent's going to say, you know what, I think it's going to take $1,450,000 to get it done, or I think it's going to take at least $975,000. So sometimes an agent will say to me, so if I get you $975,000, does that get the deal done? As of right now, it looks really strong, but I don't know what the other counters are going to be. So do your best. Remember, you're only as good as your word. If you tell somebody, or more important, tell your buyer, if we write $975,000, we're going to get it. Well, if you tell your buyer that, you better be sure that's what's going to happen. Because if they write $975,000, you don't get it, who looks like they have egg on their face?
You.
All of you on this call. Yep. You don't want to be caught in that situation of assuming. That's the last thing you want to do. You want to make sure that you have a chance to be able to keep yourself in the game. So what was Victoria? I'm sorry. What was your last question? I saw it and I didn't remember it.
Was it good?
What if they reject the offer? Like, do you continue, try to, like, what is the next step?
Well, if my offer is rejected outright, I'll ask the listing agent why.
Yeah.
And if he says for the following reasons and price, I'll ask him and say, look, if I can get them back in the game, can we resubmit? Now, a lot of listing agents, that's a turnoff. Because their feeling is if you didn't come in with both feet in strongly, what was the game for? Remember, don't be a game player. Okay, so you're going to run into some people saying that. Well, why do you want to resubmit when they came in and they thought it would, they thought it was a game? Okay. Next question was regarding if you remove the inspection contingency. What was the second half of that?
If they decide to remove something that you wouldn't advise, for instance, so many people are waiving the inspections now.
Yep.
However, we just took a class where the inspector said that's a really bad idea because sometimes, the buyer could run into a problem where there is a $30,000 gas pipe break or something like that. So would it be in our best interest to have the buyer put in writing that it's not something that you'd advise in order to protect ourselves as the agent?
Yes, when you use the car form buyer inspection waiver,
Yes.
in the middle of the page, there is a in bold words, the buyer has been strongly advised by the agent representing them not to waive the inspection, but they have chosen to do so. There is a little line there for them to initial. You make sure they initial that. Okay. But absolutely, you make sure they initial it so that they can't come back to you and say, well, you didn't advise me. You were in such a sweat to get the deal done that this is what happened. Okay? Did that help? Okay. Okay, good. So you've now gotten your offer presented and now you're waiting for the answer. Okay? You're going to keep the lender in the loop. Don't let the lender go to sleep on you right now. Keep the lender in the loop. You're going to wait for the response, and you're going to wait for those for that one word. 3 words, 4 words. Congratulations, we have a deal. Okay? Make sure that you acknowledge that acceptance so that they can't turn around and accept something else behind you. Okay, make sure on the last page of the contract, there's something called acknowledgement of acceptance. Make sure that you as the agent, it's for you to initial, that you get that deal before somebody comes around and says, what was the deal? I'll beat it. And that happens a lot. Okay, I've also had an agent once say to me, we have a deal, and then 20 minutes later call me and go, I got bad news, an offer, somebody just over-countered you. And I said, wait a minute, you told me we had a deal, and I just talked to my client. Well, nothing's been acknowledged, so we don't have a deal until that happens. And if that's where it comes down to where you find out that real estate agents are like snake oil salesmen and car salesmen. And I did that once, and one of my new agents was an ex-car salesman, so I just had to be careful on that going forward as well. Okay, but that's what happens. They don't honor their word. So keep that in mind. Don't be delinquent on your paperwork. If you have a responsibility, you tell them, send me that last page. I'll acknowledge it right now to make sure we have a deal, and tell me who the escrow officer is. I want to call and introduce myself. You take full charge and be very proactive on it. Okay? So congratulations, you got your deal. And that's what we're going to focus on Monday and Wednesday is the deal itself. Okay. Any last questions before we end the week? This just flew by. I just looked up. It's noon. Wow. Any questions? Did I answer? I mean, I know you guys were jotting a lot. Did I answer everyone's questions? Okay. And going forward, these last couple seconds, stop me if you have a question, because sometimes if I start rambling and I look down, I see what you're saying, but I don't pick it up all the way. Okay. All right, guys, this was awesome. Thanks for all the input and feedback, and I'll see everyone on Monday. Okay.
Thank you. Have a
Bye,
nice
guys. Have a
weekend.
Thank you,
great
Peter.
Have a good
Thank
weekend.
you.
weekend.
Bye. Bye.
Have a great weekend.